Hi, I'm Karina, and I did something that's still hard for me to talk about. Have you ever tried to take the easy way out to get out of trouble? Well, in my case, I took it to the extreme and it blew up in my face. I used to babysit for the family down the street. They had a 4-month old, Emma, and a toddler, Jace. I always felt a little nervous about babysitting, but the first couple of times went pretty well. Emma was a good baby, and well, Jace was wild, but we got along okay. The parents had warned me that Jace was in a stage where he was hitting and throwing things at people, and that I should tell them if he ever got out of hand. One day, I left Emma on the changing table, just for a second, I swear, while I turned around to get baby powder. I heard the most awful thud, and when I turned around, Emma was on the floor. She'd rolled off the table. I've never been so scared in my entire life. Emma wasn't crying, just laying there. She moved her arm, so I could tell she was still conscious, but all I could think was that maybe I'd brain damaged her. Maybe she had an internal injury. I was terrified. She did start to cry then. I picked her up as carefully as I could and rocked her and whispered to her. I started to cry too, thinking she'd never stop. Finally, she quieted down and I looked her over. At first, I was relieved. No visible injuries. Then I turned her over and saw a large bruise on her tiny head. I panicked again. How would I explain this to her parents? They'd kill me. I thought about calling my mom. She'd know what to do. But what if she blamed me? What if I got in huge trouble? Could I get arrested for this? Jace toddled in. He started babbling at me. He didn't say a lot of actual words yet, just dada and stuff, and trying to hit me with a foam sword from his toy box. I was already so stressed about Emma, I couldn't handle Jace's wildness. But then, I got an idea. When the parents came home, I was ready. I showed them Emma's bruise and told them I was so sorry, but that while Emma was in her swing seat, Jace had hit her with one of his toy trucks. The mom looked shocked. Hard enough to bruise? Did he mean to? I don't know, I said. My back was only turned for a second, but the dad started looking Emma over. I think she's okay, I said. She cried a little after he did it, then quieted down. We'll get the pediatrician to look at her tomorrow, he said. The mom glanced at her husband and then back at me. We've been worried about this. We think Jace might have some issues with his development. We kept hoping he'd grow out of it. We've never known him to be violent towards his sister, though. I was scared they'd suspect I was making it up, so I went on. He's done it a few times, I lied. Sometimes he'll come up to her and try to hit her for no reason. And sometimes he just stares at her. I can't explain, but it's creepy. And one time I asked him if he liked his sister, and he yelled, "No!" All of this was just pouring out of me. I didn't know how to stop. My only thought was that I had to make sure they 100% believed Jace was guilty, not me. Why didn't you say something before? The dad sounded horrified. I didn't know if it was normal for toddlers or not. I mean, you said he's in a stage where he hits people. But he's always been so good with Emma. The mother looked truly scared. We'll have to get him into therapy. Thank you for telling us the truth, Karina, the dad said. I left the house shaking. I had lied to them. Now, Jace was going to have to go to therapy, and he hadn't even done anything. They would have taken him anyway, I tried to tell myself. They were already worried about him. But I couldn't escape the guilt. It gnawed at me for days. I could barely eat or sleep. I don't think I can explain how I felt. The next time they asked me to babysit, I pretended I was busy. The next time, too. My mom finally confronted me. Why haven't you been taking babysitting jobs? I'm too busy with school, I replied. I saw your midterm grades. For someone who's so busy with school, your grades are dropping. Is something wrong? No, I snapped at her. Just stay out of my business. The next day in school, I threw up. I hadn't seen it coming. One minute, I was a little queasy. The next, I was running to the bathroom. I kept seeing that awful bruise on Emma's head. I finally took another babysitting gig to get my mom off my back. When the parents came home, I said Jace had tried to hit Emma again, but I'd stopped him. I can't explain why I lied again. It was like the more I added to the story, the more it seemed true in my mind. Jace hadn't tried to hit Emma, but he was always trying to hit me with his toys. And wasn't that bad enough? He probably would hit Emma if she was closer in proximity to him. When I babysat again a few weeks later, I made up a story where Jace had brought rocks in from the outside and tried to throw them at his sister. So, Karina, the mother said, we were thinking about putting Jace on medication for ADHD since it seems like the therapy is not making him any better. Without thinking, I immediately agreed and said that it sounded like it would be a good step. But instead of looking worried, like they had in the past, the parents looked suspicious. Come into the kitchen, Karina, the mom said. I want to talk to you. I followed her into the kitchen, my heart pounding. She gave a deep sigh. My husband and I were shocked by what you told us about Jace, so we got a nanny cam. It's in that teddy bear on the mantle. My breathing got shallow as panic rose in me. Karina, she said, Jace never went outside and got rocks. You and Emma were here the whole time until she went to bed. Jace never tried to hurt her. I nearly burst into sobs as all the guilt and shame and fear of the past few weeks hit me at once. But some part of me was defensive too. The part that had started to believe my own stories. That Jace was dangerous, out of control. He did go outside, I tried to tell her. He was... Karina, I want you to tell me honestly. Her eyes were wet with tears, but her voice was firm. Has Jace been trying to hurt Emma? I wanted to tell another lie. It would feel good to tell another one. Yes, I said. I'm being honest. The father got his phone out and showed me the tape. He said that they kept an eye on Jace for the whole day, and they know for a fact that he didn't do anything. I froze. I couldn't reply. They kept asking me why I was lying, and I simply had no answer. I just enjoyed it. I don't remember exactly what happened after that. I ended up at home, and the next day I stayed in bed. My mom kept telling me that everything would be all right, that the neighbors knew Emma's fall had been an accident. But I could feel that my mom was treating me differently. And a few days later, she said she wanted me to see a counselor. You think I'm crazy? I burst out. No, honey, I don't. But I just want you to talk to her. I did go. The counselor and I discussed pathological lying and how the blurring of reality and fantasy, the sense that it would feel good to lie, could signify pathological tendencies in me. It sounded so horrible. But I've continued to go to counseling, and I'm getting better at recognizing those tendencies. I wrote a letter of apology to the neighbors, but they still haven't responded. There are days when all I can do is close my eyes and dig my nails into my palms and wish I'd never told that first lie. My mom says I may have to live with the guilt for a while. It's hard, but I know the fact that I feel guilty at all is a good sign. It means that I want to get better, and I'm going to keep trying.